Thank you, Sakshi. Sorry, everyone. We're having few technical issues. I'm not quite sure what happened there, but we are back live with Anniek. Uh, the good news is the session will be absolutely worth it at the end. But with lockdown, we face technology challenges all the time. I apologize again from our end. But I will not waste too much time. Anniek, what we can do is we have a few Q&As as well. We'll get into it at the end of the session. But
Yes.
for now, what we can do is get into the expressive exercise. Just for everyone's introduction, Anniek is a fantastic art therapist, therapeutic artist, I beg your pardon. And she's been with Mindhug since the very, very start. I have had a lot of sessions with her myself, and I know how great her work is. So I know everyone's here looking to be enjoy this session. So I will hand it over to you, Anik.
Thanks so much, Raj. I don't know what from our previous session or just live has come across, but I hope that that bit of a technical difficulty gave you the chance to gather some materials. I think it was just at that point where we cut out. Um, so I just started explaining a little bit about what we were going to do today, and the idea is to start with a watercolor exercise. So hopefully you found some materials. I'm going to lower my laptop camera, which is sort of having to deal with everything here, and you'll see my paper. So you'll get a bit of a view. And what I hope you could do is just sort of follow me, and I'll guide you through an exercise which we call wet on wet painting, and it involves some water. So I've got just a glass of water, I've got a sponge, I've got a brush. In fact, I've got two brushes. I've got one smaller one and one slightly larger, sort of a flat brush. So you can use whatever brush you've got there. The softer the better for watercolor. And then I've got a watercolor palette with lots of colors. As I mentioned earlier as well, this year's Mental Health Awareness Week is all about nature, and I think it might be a very suitable time now to work with what nature offers us, and what nature might offer you. So perhaps there is a moment of reflection within this where you might think a little bit about what nature means to you. Maybe during lockdown you've had the chance to have more walks outside, maybe reappreciated nature, fresh air, being able to enjoy a walk outside in the park perhaps. I live close to the sea, and it's been really wonderful just being able to sit next to the sea and just have a moment of just reflection there, really. And I think that made a big difference to my experience of lockdown. All right, so now I've absorbed a little bit of water in this sponge. I'll give it a little squeeze. What I'd like you to do is to place the sponge, if you have whatever it is that you're using, maybe use a big brush for this, it's also fine. But what I'd like to do is try and be really mindful of your breathing. And we start off moving from left to right, breathing in, and moving further down, breathing out on the way back. So you can really slow this down. Don't worry about the amount of water that you're using. Breathing in. And breathing out. We're just going to do this all the way till the end, to the bottom of the paper. Breathing in. And breathing out. I'll flip the paper over and do the same on the other side. And at this point you might have noticed what it is that you like today, what your breath is like today. Is it a little superficial? Is it difficult to breathe out? Are you a bit tense? Yeah, try and just sort of notice these things without wanting to change them. And breathing in, nice and slow. Breathing out. Just go really gently over the paper. Breathing in. Breathing out. A little bit of extra water in the corners. I'm just going to move it once more back to where we started. And then our paper is prepared and ready. Now you can imagine that when we apply watercolor on top of this wet paper, it will have a bit of a flow-like quality. And it's quite difficult to control. So for those of you that may have a perfectionist quality themselves or trait, you might find that can be a bit frustrating. I hope at some point you'll be able to let that go. And in that sort of letting go, it could be quite a relief, and maybe quite relaxing in itself. Try and see how it works for you. So I'm going to start with a larger brush. And what you might like to do at home is pick any color that comes to you right now. But I'd like you to think of the meaning of nature. What does it mean to you? How do you feel when you connect with nature? What is it like to, I don't know, sit under a tree or smell the smell of fresh, sort of the rain perhaps on the soil, or just anything really that's to do with nature at the moment. So right now I'm going to go for green, and it seems really obvious, but you know, it's a color that makes me feel very much connected with nature. And I'm going to go with a green that is more like grass green. Let's see what that's like. So again, I'm going to add this onto the paper, and you see what happens. There's a nice flow quality with that. And I can really sort of allow that brush to go over the paper as I like, really. This is really light. And I sort of like to do that myself. You don't have to. You can sort of start with real bright and vivid colors straight away. I kind of like to start off with a bit of a sketch, if you like. And again, I'm staying mindful of my breathing. And it appears that the faster I use my brush on the paper, faster I'm breathing, and most likely my thoughts have taken over. So see if you can test that for yourself. If you catch yourself working really quickly and moving very quickly, does that mean that you've been just wandering off in thoughts? And can you then just gently bring your attention back? Now, very naturally, it seems like I'm just, using a movement here on the paper that seems to remind me of hills and the countryside, especially the English countryside. And I'm going to go with that. And again, there are not real details in here at all. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that it transports me back there. I get that sort of sense of being in nature, having this view, being able to breathe. I'm gradually building my color tone. This will only be a short session, so we're just going to keep it quite simple. But you can imagine that this can be quite a long time that you want to work on this. So maybe at home, you might find yourself working on this a little bit longer, perhaps even after the session stops. And if you do, just try and just remind yourself just simply of what it is like to be there on the paper. What does it feel like? What's your breath like? What does your body feel like? What is it like to work with the colors that you've chosen to work with? Sometimes the colors trigger something in us. Usually to do with maybe previous experiences, associations that we have with these colors. Today we're trying to avoid getting too much caught up in analyzing what we do, but rather be more transported in the experience and the places that it's offering us. And if you're working with other materials, you might just want to just focus on, what comes onto the paper. What does it feel like to have that connection with the paper, whatever material you're using? If it's pencil, crayons. Is it hard today to keep your focus? Are you quickly distracted? We're trying not to judge those patterns, but we're just trying to see them and notice them, and that's all. Alright, so the lower half of my painting is pretty much fully green, just one tone of green or one color green, and I've varied the tone a little bit. So you get some variation. Some areas that look a little lighter, some areas a little bit more defined because of it. What I might try and do now is just to add one more tone of green into this and see how that feels. This one is quite strong, it's a bit of a bluey green. Let's see how that works. Again, I'm just keeping sort of curved line. For me, this is really relaxing, this sort of curved sort of shape or line. For you, it might not be, and you may have chosen to do something else. It's completely fine. Just sort of see what it's like for you. What is your initial sort of shape or color or way of working? You may have decided to work with a smaller brush as well. Again, I feel usually a little bit more relaxed when I work with a bigger brush. And when I go with a smaller brush, it tends to be more about detail. And then I involve my thinking way more. And my thoughts come up in a little bit of a quicker succession. And I might also be more inclined to judge myself more when I start applying details. So today we're trying to stay away from that, if you can. I'm just using the front of the brush, just a little bit more gently, lighter on the paper. And I just noticed I skipped a bit of breathing there. I suddenly stopped for a moment, I paused. So I'm just trying to be mindful of that. Just bring myself back to my breathing pattern. You can imagine you could pick blue and this could look like a sea. We're very much using these shapes that are a bit flow-like. We could very much see that in the sea as well. But in the hills, when you walk in the countryside, you probably also create that association. Perhaps flowers are important for you. You might want to add some flowers or maybe a tree, or perhaps you could kind of create some things in a distance. In fact, it could be quite a simple tree, maybe just just a few lines that help to it's supposed to be a small tree, but it seems to be growing. I'm quite intrigued with that. And when that happens, we have that initial intention to put something on the paper, but really something else might come from that. Again, it's much more about the impression of a tree than getting the tree correct, yeah, or exactly right. All with the same brush. And to finish this painting off, I'm gonna go very simply with a nice blue light, just to give it a blue sky. And again, just slow down. Keeping a little bit of space between the actual area of the sky, the blue, and the tree, because as soon as it comes too close, the colors will probably mix in. Right. So that's my expression today of nature, something that feels familiar to me, and a space where I would very much like to spend some time. And I do, and I try as much as I can. I hope you've had your own experience there. So I'm going to move the screen back up and see if there are any other questions. If you are in the middle of your process and you need to finish it, I would say go for it. Just enjoy that.
Thank you very much, Anniek. It was, as always, a great session, and I know we've got some few comments about how peaceful people have found it, and I think you're gifted in that way, Anniek. Not only is the art therapeutic, but the way you deliver it is absolutely spot on. So I want to thank you again. And you've been with us from the start, and we've been pushing the agenda of therapeutic art, and the benefit of arts generally, including music therapy, etc. And yeah, I think people will begin to understand that it's all about expression and anchoring you in the present moment, and that's and for different people, different things work, and art works for a lot of people. And what I thought we could just quickly end on is, if you can just let us know why you think therapeutic art is so important for people, and why you don't actually need to be an artist to actually benefit from therapeutic art.
Right. I think being able to express yourself, for some people it's just very hard to express themselves verbally, and I think it's being able to create, being able to find a different language, I think is essential in that moment. Everybody needs a voice, and sometimes your voice can be expressed in another medium. So it might be that somebody is musical and might also feel that there is a release or some sort of understanding. It makes sense to them to be able to play the guitar or to paint, to even create something out of natural materials outside when you go on a walk. So there are so many different ways of experiencing that creativity and that voice that I think is definitely worth finding your own. And in some cases, people, they do try different types of therapy. It could be as a verbal or a talking therapy that may not have worked for them, or they might be curious or interested in looking for other methods. And I think it's definitely worth trying creative therapy just to sort of see what connects, and finding that connection, I think, is really important in order for you to feel safe and to be able to explore what it is that you want to work on yourself.
Great. And well, that brings us to the end of everything that we're going to do for Mental Health Awareness Week. But like we said right in the beginning, we don't end up Mental Health Awareness Week. We understand it's Mental Health Awareness Month. It should be Mental Health Awareness Lifetime, like I've said in the past as well. So we're going to have a lot of other events through the month. So keep your eyes peeled on our social media. We, as well as our website, will be posting various bits and pieces about various events are coming up. We'll be talking to therapists just like Anniek. We'll also be talking to people with lived experiences, having exciting panel discussions. So a lot more to come. Keep your eyes peeled. And again, Anniek, thank you very much for this great session. And happy Mental Health Awareness Week, everyone. And we will see you in a few days. Bye.